everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today I will be telling the story of Roger Kiser. He is one of the White House boys. I think he was one of the men on the interview that I inserted the clips in the video that I did on the White House boys. So now I'm going to hopefully be able to tell individual stories of some of the boys that went to the Mariana School for Boys and that were part of the White House boys. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be telling his story. He has given me permission. So yeah, I hope you guys are ready. Before we get into this video, do not forget to hit my subscribe button to go ahead and join the gang, Latest Gang on YouTube. Give this video a thumbs up, comment down below what you guys think, and also I will leave the video to the Mariana School for Boys, what I did. I will leave that video and an end card and also in the description box so you guys can go ahead and watch that and get a little bit of information on what the White House Boys is, what the school is and everything before you guys watch this video. I would highly suggest that. And without further ado, let's get into his story. So I'm going to be reading this on my phone because I actually have been emailing him and he sent me his basically whole story. You can also look it up. They have a website, whitehouseboys.com. You can go ahead and look up and read all the stories of all the men that are still alive and that they have been able to get in contact with on the website. So I'll also leave that in the description as well. This is Roger Kiser, and he was 12 years old and he was sent to the Mariana School for Boys. I will insert a picture right here of what he was looking like when he was 12. I was about 12 years old, living in the Florida School for Boys at Mariana. When they called me to the head office, they told me that I would soon visit the White House, which was a torture room for boys who broke one of their many rules or tried to escape. I was sent to school for trying to escape from the Children's Home Society orphanage in Jacksonville. I had been incarcerated there for 10 years for the crime of having no parents to care for me. When I heard that they were taking me to this White House, an extreme fear came over me. I almost passed out and was trembling so badly that my legs collapsed under me. I fell to the floor and lay there. The men told me to get my sorry butt up and sit down on the hard wooden bench outside the office. I waited there for the two men who would take me to the White House. I knew the routine well, as I had heard about it from many other boys who were taken there. Other than the time I learned that I had cancer and would die within 6 months, I've never known more fear than when I was told I was going to be taken to this place. After a wait of about 30 minutes, these two men came to get me. They grabbed me by the arms and lifted me off the bench. There were several other boys in the office with me, so I had to try to act as though I was not scared. But they knew. The two men walked with me across the grass circle that divided the offices from the White House. We stopped at another office and a man with one arm walked out. He took the place of one of the men holding me. We continued walking toward the mess hall. As we rounded the building, I could see right in front of me the White House. My mind was just going crazy with fear. My thoughts seemed to be swimming in a circle like a cat that had been thrown into a cold river. I was so scared, I could not think straight. My words were coming from my mouth before my mind could think of what it was I was attempting to say. I was trying to decide if I should run and hide or maybe kill myself. Anything was better than what was going to happen in there. When we reached the door, one of the men took out his keys and stuck one into the lock. I looked back over my shoulder and I saw about 50 boys. They stared in silence. As the door opened, an ungodly odor filled my nose and I could hardly breathe. I remember trying to step through the doorway, but the odor was so overwhelming that I fell into the hallway inside. One of the men grabbed me by the back of my shirt collar and jerked it up around my neck, choking me. One of the buttons fell off my shirt and hit the floor, rolling very slowly around the corner. Almost everything was happening in a slow motion. My whole body was just numb and it was very difficult for me to breathe. I tried to pull the shirt down from around my neck, but the man jerked it once again and hit me on the top of the head with his knuckles. It hit the floor again and bloodied my nose from the impact. At this point, I was not walking at all. My legs would not work. The two men picked me up and carried me into a small room which had nothing in it except a bunk bed and a pillow. They put me down on the floor and ordered me to lie on the bed facing the wall, crying. I pulled myself up onto the edge of the bed and wiped the blood from my nose onto my shirt sleeve. When I looked up at the men's face, they were plain, cold, and hard. They had no expression whatsoever. I did what they told me to do. One of them said to move my hands to the top of the bunk bed and grab the bar at the headboard. I did so as quickly as I could. Not one sound could be heard. I felt one of the men reach under the pillow and slowly pull something out. I turned over quickly and looked at one who was standing near me. He had a large leather strap in his hand. "Turn your damn head back toward the wall," he yelled. I knew what was going to happen and it was going to be very bad. I had been told what to expect by some of the boys who were taken to the White House. I never heard from some of them again. I also heard that this giant strap was made of 2 pieces of leather with a piece of sheet metal sewn in between the halves. Again, everything was dead silent. I remember tightening my butt cheeks as much as I could. Then I waited and waited and waited. I remember someone taking a breath, then a footstep. I turned over very quickly and looked toward the man with the leather strap. There was an ungodly look on his face, and I knew he was going to beat me to death. I will never forget that look for as long as I live. I tried to jump off the bed, but I was knocked backward when the leather strap hit me on the side of the face. The men grabbed me and held me to the floor. I was yelling God to save me, begging for someone, anyone to help. There was blood all over everything. It was everywhere. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, I repeated at the top of my voice. Please forgive me. Dear God, please help me. But it didn't do any good. God didn't hear me that day. Maybe he was smart enough not ever to enter the White House, not even to save a child. After about 5 minutes of begging, pleading, and crying, he told me to get back on the bed and grab the top rail again. They warned that if I tried to get off the bed, the whole thing would repeat from the beginning. I slowly pulled myself off the floor and got back onto the bed. Again, I grabbed the rail and waited. Everything became quiet, except for the 2 men breathing really hard. Once again, I tightened up my buttocks and waited. Then all of a sudden it happened. I thought my head would explode. The thing came down on me over and over. I screamed and kicked and yelled as much as I could, but it did no good. He just kept beating me over and over. However, I never let go of that bed rail. Then there was nothing. The next thing I remember, I was sitting on another wooden bench in the one-armed man's office. I remember wiping the slobber and blood from my mouth. My body felt like it was on fire. I stood and found that I hardly could. God, it hurt badly. I will never forget that day. I will never forget that until the day I die. One of the men in the office yelled at me to sit down. I told him that I had to go to the bathroom really bad. He pointed at the doorway and said that it was the bathroom. He told me to make it quick. I'm gonna tell somebody about this here stuff when I get out of here one day, I told the man. Saying things like that around here is a good way to wake up dead, sonny boy, stated the man as he squinted his eyes and pointed his fingers at me. I slowly walked into the bathroom and closed the door. I looked in the mirror. There was dried blood all over my blue and black face, my hair, and my mouth. I took my torn shirt off, which was hanging from the waistband of my pants, and then I turned around and looked into the mirror. My back was black and blue and also bloody. I almost panicked out of my mind when I saw my reflection. I looked like a monster. I started to cry, but I covered my mouth with both hands so no other boys would hear me. I loosened my belt buckle to get my pants down. It was very painful, but the worst was yet to come. Once they were down, I noticed that my legs were all bloody and my skin was black in color. I stood over the toilet and tried to urinate, but it just would not come out. I decided to take my underwear down and sit on the toilet until I could go, but the underwear would not come off. It was stuck to my rear end and legs. The cotton material had been beaten into the skin of my butt and was dried with blood. I pulled my pants back up and washed my face, mainly because I did not want the other boys to see that I had been crying. I was so scared that I could not stop shaking. Finally, I walked back into the outer office and saw Mr. Sealander, my cottage house parent, standing by the doorway. He took me back to the cottage. He called the office to complain about what happened to me, and then he took me to the hospital where the old nurse, Miss Womack, soaked me in Epsom salts, and Dr. Wexler sutured up the wounds to my buttocks. With tweezers, she pulled the underwear from my skin. Then she petted that big, ugly cat of hers and sent me away. Why was this done to me? I never knew until years later why I was beaten like that. They did it because I said shit when I slipped on the diving board at the pool. I do not even remember saying that kind of word. I was never a boy who cursed. I will never forget, for as long as I live, that vicious beating done to me without even knowing why. I will never forget the monster that I saw in the mirror that day. I will never forget what adults are capable of doing to a child. I will never forget that the state of Florida was behind what happened to me and many other boys just for running away from an abusive orphanage. I do not hold any grudges against those men. If Mr. Hatton had not beaten me, another man would have done the job. Those were the rules. To them, it was a job they were paid to do. However, I've always wondered if Mr. Hatton was ever troubled the least little bit by that beating. I've always wondered if Mr. Robert Curry, the psychologist, got a thrill out of putting a 12 or 13-year-old boy in his place in that manner. I spoke with Mr. Troy Tidwell, the one-armed man, on the telephone on February 11th, 1999. He is now 72 years old and still lives in Marianna, Florida. I asked him if he could locate Mr. Sealander, and I'm sure he had no idea who I was. He may not even remember that far back, although I think it is more likely that he does. How could someone not remember beating little boys like that? I thank you for caring, Mr. Sealander. Wherever you are, I want to thank you for your kindness and understanding. Because of that one kind deed, I have learned to trust, respect, and take the word of my fellow man. Thank you for being kind to me and making me feel that I was worth something to someone. I will always remember, respect, and love you for that kindness. Oh my God.